Welcome to the Nashville Tribute Band podcast, The Listening Room with Jason Deere
and Brad Hull.
Crazy about a sharp-dressed man.
The official clothier and tailor of the Nashville Tribute Band is the Cater Shop. That's Cater with a K. Catershop.com. If you see the Nashville Tribute Band and we look good, it's all because of the Cater Shop.
Hey, there he is.
Is Dad driving?
Apparently.
If he's driving, maybe he just do the audio.
Well, this is going to be a really interesting thing. Lamb to the Slaughter may be the perfect song. Now he can't hear you, but we
can't hear him. I see him.
Yeah. Maybe it's better.
All right, Dad, you there?
Yeah.
Today's topic is story behind the song Lamb to the Slaughter from the Nashville Tribute Band album, Joseph and Nashville Tribute to the Prophet.
Yes.
Last week we have Dan on here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the very final track that's on the album called Farewell Nauvoo. We've talked about that in another podcast, but I wanted to get kind of Dan's perspective on that song and why that song means a lot to him. There's a lot of reasons why it means a lot to us, and let's talk about that for a second.
Cool. You want me to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is 15 years ago, or more, and we're putting this together, and we thought, why not put an instrumental on there? And I was just thinking, I just wanted to write something that would represent the feelings, possibly, that those people had as they had stayed. And they had built, this was their city, this was the headquarters of the church, this was everything to them. I think a lot of times we forget that. And now they're having to leave. So it was extremely bittersweet with an emphasis on bitter. I just wanted to try to capture that. I had this melody that went, da-na-na-na-na. I thought, if I put the right bass note in there and if I do the cool things, that might work. And it kind of sounded like this haunting trumpet calling everybody. But once you play it on the piano, it doesn't really come off like that. But it just kind of has that interval. And that's how I created it. That's how I went with it. And I would sit there a lot of hours and just play it different ways, and finally came up with that version. So Jason and I are recording it. Actually, we were recording 2 or 3 things. And when Jason left, I finished up Emma, and then I finished up, in other words, we were just kind of, the engineer and I were getting some final sounds on Emma. We knew we were going to put some strings on that. And then I was doing some Farewell Nauvoo. And after all that, when I walked into the control room, and this guy, he wasn't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He was all teary-eyed, and he's wiping his eyes. And he said, "What in the world is this project?" He said the song about how much can one heart take was just getting to me. And he says, "Is that a real person?" And I was like, yeah. And then I told him a little bit of the history of the church. And then he said, "And then this thing, tell me about that." And I told him, this is just what I have you explain to you guys here in this podcast, that it was they were forced out of that city. And boy, he was so melancholy and so tearful. It was a way cool experience for me when knowing this guy wasn't a member of our church, and he was so moved by those 2 songs, so moved by what we were doing.
That is really cool to hear.
I think that's one of my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of instrumentals that you've done on these projects that I've loved, but there's none more powerful than Farewell Nauvoo to me. I mean, there's equals of it maybe, but that just so captures that moment and that feeling that I imagine them feeling.
I remember 15 years ago when we first started playing these firesides, that was always the highlight of the show for me, and not because it signified that the show was over. Yeah. But it was such just a haunting, beautiful piece of music. I don't know. It reminded me of something like Alan Silvestri kind of composition or something for a movie.
It was a great film score. So thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It really felt like that, and it just captured so much emotion. And Jason would always share this story of some young girl, and I can't remember who it was, but it was the words of this young girl that said, "It's night almost, and tomorrow we leave for somewhere. I will take the 2 little things that I love most, my kitten's plate and my little dog." And I think it was maybe a little teddy bear dog kind of thing. And I can't remember the rest of...
I shall come back one day and find you.
Yeah, and that just set the tone for it as well. But What a beautiful piece and a beautiful tribute, Dan. Thank you for your talents and for listening to the Spirit on that one.
Well, I gotta hand it to Jason. When we went to start performing Nashville Tribute, the Joseph CD live, I was kind of like, I've always been like this, we have vocals singing, that's one thing, but people get tired of an instrumental really quick. I've learned that through the years. I'm sitting in my living room and they'll say, Dan, play something. So I play something I think's real cool. About halfway through the song, everybody's talking. Everybody's in discussions, conversation.
The disrespect.
Yeah.
So I was always like, downplaying. Well, maybe we shouldn't do this for the live show. But Jason was completely, sold that we should. Jason sold me on it. So I appreciate that, dude.
Yeah. Well, man, listen, it's the album would never be the album without that. So I love that.
So I just had a realization. Brad said you guys started playing this 15 years ago. So was that 2004, 2005?
The album came out in 2005. We probably did a fireside or two in 2004. But we started doing this on a regular basis in 2005.
So the summer of 2004, I was out in Nauvoo on the anniversary of the martyrdom of Joseph Smith. And it was the first year that they had just redone the Nauvoo pageant to go from a pre-recorded thing to a live thing. And to be out there and to reconnect with those saints. Now, realizing about the same time that you guys were getting this going is kind of a weird thing, for me to think about. And it was really cool to connect with them and feel the saints' spirits, and Nauvoo and what they went through and how they were about ready to leave, and to spend 6 weeks in that town was magical. I mean, magical is probably the wrong word, but that's what it was.
No, that's a great word. There was an energy there that like none other.
Absolutely.
Part of today's topic is Lamb to the Slaughter, and I just quickly wanted to just kind of go over this. This song was truly the beginning of all this because I was a missionary serving with Elder Orr, probably, 6 months into my mission, maybe 7 months, 8 months, something like that. I can't remember. And we were living in this pink trailer on Boulder Highway in Las Vegas. And we taught our first discussion one night and came back. And I remember just walking out and sitting down on this old redwood deck on the outside of this pink trailer. And these words, I was just thinking so hard about the martyrdom of the prophet and what that meant. And just the words of this song came down really, really fast. And it's obvious in this thing that I don't even know how to write a song very well back at this time at all. I didn't, when it comes to the craft of songwriting, I mean, the first verse I rhymed said was said. I would never do that in a million years now, but but
that's why it rhymes so good.
Man,
it's the same word.
Let me just read these lyrics. Lamb to the slaughter. The morning was clear on the road from Nauvoo. A tear touched his eye as his home fell from view. The journey was silent and few words were said as he leaned to his brother and quietly said, as a lamb to the slaughter, I willingly go and die for my Father. His strength fills my soul. I've lived for my Savior and I'll die for him too. With humble heart, I lay down my life, a prophet of truth. 4 humble men sang with the angels on high. He asked if I for him would die. The flesh was weak, my blood ran chill, but my free spirit cried, I will. For I know this day I shall see my Savior's face. As a lamb to the slaughter, I willingly go and die for my Father. His strength fills my soul. I've lived for my Savior and I'll die for him too. With humble heart, I lay down my life, a prophet of truth. A noise from the stairway, a shot through the door. The first martyr fell to the floor. Tears filled Joseph's eyes. Oh, my dear brother Hyrum, today you'll find peace. Oh, Lord my God, release my soul. Set my spirit free. As a lamb to the slaughter, I willingly go and die for my Father. His strength fills my soul. I've lived for my Savior and I'll die for him too. With humble heart, I lay down my life, a prophet of truth. And with humble heart, I go to my grave, a prophet of truth. I had never written a song ever in my life, I think, that was along these lines at all. I kind of know what that feeling is like now. I mean, we've put out a lot of music, and I've written a lot of songs about things that mean a lot to me. But that was the first time that I was taught by a song I was writing. Does that make any sense? First time at 19 years old, and probably changed me forever. I mean, I didn't do anything like this a long time until 2004. So that would have been in 1989. Yeah, and I still remember sitting out there going, "What is going on?" what is just happening, because something that just kind of came out of me taught me what it felt like to be this guy and to know this guy and to know what this hornet's nest of persecution could lead to and what it meant to be a member of the church at that time.
Jason.
Yeah.
I've always thought, remember when you called, we'd always look for something to do. This is before we even came up with the Nashville Tribute idea or any idea. And that's the first thing you told me. When you called me, you would call all excited. It was 2004, and you said, I got this idea. I wrote this song on my mission. My first thought was, what the heck? If you wrote a song on his mission, it's going to be horrible. And then you sent that over, and you said, we should do this about Joseph and Hyrum and Emma and talk about those that built what we have and as the restored gospel. And it was obviously an idea that's carried us to where we're at. But originally I was like, you wrote a song on his mission? And that really is something.
I loved that experience. I mean, I've told you guys before that early on in my life, with my grandparents who were trying to save me from the Mormons, and with my best friend who was not a member of the church and thought that I was half crazy for being a member of the church, and was just general opposition of a kid growing up in Oklahoma around so few members of the church. I had to really quickly dig in and think a lot about this whole thing, whether it was for me, because there was no comfort zone in doing it. And so, I've been thinking a lot. I mean, our prophets ask us to read Joseph Smith history and to consider the first vision before General Conference this weekend. And not even really intentionally have I followed that counsel, but I've kind of been, I can't get my mind off of it. And recently somebody asked me the question, why did Joseph, and it was kind of asked a little skeptically, like, well, why did he have so many people that hated him and persecuted him so much? Why is that? And, with the feelings that I feel inside and with the way that I feel inside, sometimes I just want to wring people's neck, to be honest with you, for even asking a question like that. Because and I get passionate sometimes about the things that I believe in. I feel strongly, and as a matter of fact, my wife tells me sometimes to the point that I should really shut my mouth. And maybe this is one of those points, but I'm not gonna. But in pondering the restoration, why was Joseph hated so much? Just hear me out for 1 second and interrupt me anywhere. I'm totally happy to that. But last night, my family, which is just three of us now, we were reading Joseph Smith history, and the preacher in town that Joseph had kind of befriended and had been listening to as he went through this kind of really intense, look at the churches around there and trying to find truth. He was the first person to become angry with Joseph about this. As a matter of fact, he said that could only be of the devil. That the day of revelation, the day of angels visiting people, etc., it's over. God doesn't talk to man anymore. And he said that's only can be from of the devil. And he got angry with him and said, don't ever speak of this again. Now, remember, Joseph went about his life for like 3 years in Palmyra after this, before Moroni started to teach him, appear to him and teach him, and kind of things went on. So this whole thing's growing. Oh, this Smith boy, he's crazy. He's had this crazy vision. There's some people that are just flat mean. And then there's other people that don't like things because they're threatened. And I want you to think about it. If you're a pastor or an evangelist or a preacher in the town of Palmyra and you have this congregation, guess how your livelihood is made? Whether you're a spiritual person or whether you're thinking temporally, your livelihood is made by people showing up on Sunday and dropping money in that plate. And here, some guy is coming in, and this is what Jesus, as Jesus stood in the presence of his own father, said to Joseph. This is from Joseph Smith history, verse 19. I was answered that I must join none of the churches, none of them, for they were all wrong. And the personage who addressed me was Jesus, said that all their creeds were an abomination in his sight, that those professors were all corrupt, that they draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They teach for doctrines the commandments of men, having a form of godliness, but they deny the power thereof. Now, okay, this is that's pretty serious stuff when you say that right now, because I don't think Jesus' intention was to harm anyone else. This was a conversation with Joseph trying to answer his concern with these different churches as he went around, and why he was uncomfortable there and why he wasn't feeling right about them. So I don't think Christ was certainly bashing on people who are honest, good Christians trying to do the best they can with what they have at all. But he was telling Joseph why he wanted him to hang tight for a little while until he had further instructions. So, of course, for these 3 years, there was this building anger spurred on probably by these pastors and these evangelists who were hearing about this Smith kid, who threatened him. And I think part of it was probably like, wait a second, this ridiculous 14-year-old kid who saw God in the woods, who's saying that he saw God in the woods, and he's spreading this around. And it's kind of this ridiculous story is seriously starting to pose a threat to me, because people are starting to believe him. People are starting to believe him. Are you kidding me? I mean, and so that kind of grew into anger over just misbelief of how this thing could possibly be. And then later, Moroni appears to Joseph and starts to teach him and prepare him, and he tells him this ancient record written on gold plates deposited in a hill nearby. Boom. Gallon of gasoline on the campfire right there. Why? Gold plates. Because all of a sudden, these pastors and these believers who are threatened by Joseph and by this growing number of people that are believing this ridiculous story, quote unquote, all of a sudden they're joined by some pretty not so great people who think that Joseph has found some kind of a piece of Spanish gold or something like that, and he's in possession of these things, and they want this thing from him, So, and then we start with the fear factor, because as this thing grows, time goes on. In 1830, spring of 1830, there's 6 members of the church, and then move on into Kirtland and start to buy properties and grow things and start to get a little scary. And then out of a swamp in Nauvoo, they build a city in 5 years that rivals Chicago at the time in size. And to defend themselves, Joseph organizes a militia of 5,000 men, armed men, the largest militia. Think about this, the largest militia in the United States. That scared everybody, including the president of the United States at the time. So, and I think what people were freaked out about is that these people were people were believing this stuff. They were following this guy. They were buying up properties, cities, potentially counties, potentially states, and they had the largest militia in the country. This is scary. This is scary stuff. They're motivated. They're industrious, unlike any other people in the United States. And then you add polygamy, whatever that is. You take that for what it is to you, whatever you need it to be. But you add polygamy or rumors of polygamy to the mix, and the wildfires just went mean. I mean, they just went crazy and went mean. Now this is my whole point of even bringing this stuff up. Why did Joseph Smith? Why did people hate him? And here's my point. Why would you expect anything different? Noah, he preaches, people hate him. He builds an ark, people hate him. Moses, he tells the truth, he defends the truth. He's hated by the Egyptians, and he's even hated by his own people because he forced their hand for 40 years out there to try to keep them on the straight and narrow. John the Baptist, he prepared the way of the Lord, and his head ended up on the plate, on a platter for a queen. Jesus, just go through that story in your mind. Spit upon, hated, because he threatened the entire establishment of everything. And he was scourged and crucified. Now, I want to really quickly, this is very important to me. This is the fate of the original 12 apostles. Simon or Peter. After multiple trials in Rome, Peter was crucified, but feeling unworthy to be crucified in the same manner as the Savior, Peter requested to be crucified upside down on an inverted cross, which he was. Catholics believe that Peter was crucified head down in the actual point of the cross in the Basilica of St. Peter in the Vatican. Andrew, Peter's brother, according to the 15th century religious historian Dorman Newman, Andrew, the brother of Peter, went to Patras in western Greece in 69 AD, where the Roman proconsul or judge, Agates, debated religion with him. Agates tried to convince Andrew to forsake Christianity so that he would not have to torture and execute him. But when that didn't work, apparently he decided to give Andrew the full treatment, and Andrew was scourged, then tied rather than nailed to a cross so that he would suffer for a longer time before dying. Andrew lived for 2 days, during which he preached to passersby. Think about that. John the Revelator, or John the Beloved. Traditional Christians think or assume that John died of natural causes on the Isle of Patmos, where he lived in exile. However, according to Latter-day Saint belief, we rely on the doctrine, the Lord said unto me, my beloved, what desirest thou? For if ye ask what you will, it shall be granted unto you. And he said, Lord, give me the power over death that I may live and bring souls unto thee. That turned out pretty good. James, John's brother, we actually do have some biblical scriptures to back this one up. From Acts chapter 12, 1-2. Now, about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. Herod was a bad dude. I mean, he ordered the slaughter of every baby under the age of 2 to prevent the Savior. Whatever, come on. Bartholomew, also known as Nathaniel. Very little is known about Bartholomew's death, but some sources say that he was martyred, while others say he was skinned alive and beheaded. One source says that he was flayed with knife. Flayed can mean simply to peel your skin off. It can also reference the skin being removed because of severe beating or whipping. And indeed, another hypothesis suggests that severe whipping tore Bartholomew's skin to shreds. Philip, one source says that he was hung until dead, while National Geographic suggests crucifixion was during his ministry in Egypt. Thomas was run through with a lance or a spear somewhere during his ministry in India. Matthew, the tax collector, preached and was arrested in Ethiopia. It was there that he was staked or impaled to the earth by spears and then beheaded. James, not the brother of John. There are three theories. Take your pick. James was crucified during his ministry in Egypt. Theory number 2, James died as a martyr and his body was sawed into pieces. Theory 3, at a ripe old age, he was beaten, stoned, and finished off by a club to the head. Theory 4, James was preaching on a wall when Jewish religious leaders decided to throw him off of it. Jude, not to be confused with Judas Iscariot, was in Armenia when he was crucified and shot with arrows some 45 years after Christ's death. Simon the Zealot, zealot means a person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of religious, political, or other ideals. There's two theories. The Catholic website also alleges that Simon the Zealot died in Edessa and was crucified, and he was a missionary in Africa and then England, where he was crucified around 74 AD. Judas Iscariot, we know what happened to that guy. Here's my point in bringing up all these things. Shouldn't we be looking for someone who has hell follow them around, who lives every day staring in the face the adversary? Shouldn't we be looking for somebody like that instead of somebody who's driving a Mercedes and who everything is going perfect for? I don't see any other evidence in history that would not suggest that the man or the boy that God would call to restore the fullness of the gospel and all things to the earth in preparation for the second coming of Jesus Christ, I wouldn't expect that his life would be anything less than hell on every moment, that he wasn't absolutely secured by angels.
The poor boy had nothing to gain by dedicating his life to what he professed to have happened. Nothing.
Yeah, what's the upside?
There is none. He literally was born penniless and he died penniless. He died with nothing to leave to his family. And I'm not just talking about money. Nothing. The only thing he had to, and he was born of such low consequence that he would never think that he would have any kind of legend that he would leave behind. There's none of that. And
there's definitely plenty of times where he was beaten and thrown in prison and tried to be, they tried to kill him many times before he actually was. So all of that.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a couple lessons to be learned. Is one, Jay, the one you're trying to make, that someone being hated by most people who know him should not be a disqualifier for being in the right. Right? So that's point number one. And the second point is say goodbye to the thought of prosperity gospel. Right. To live the faith does not equal to have the best life, especially from an exterior standpoint. Right. Does it mean your house is going to be great and your family is always going to be healthy? It doesn't mean any of that.
It can, but as we're learning in 2020, it can turn on a dime.
Right. Exactly.
Well, it's a great point. Remember, quote unquote, in Joseph Smith history, I had actually seen a light. And in the midst of that light, I saw two personages. And they did in reality speak to me, and though I was hated and persecuted for saying that I had seen a vision, yet it was true. And while they were persecuting me, reviling me, and speaking all manner of evil against me falsely for so saying, I was led to say in my heart, why persecute me for telling the truth? I have actually seen a vision. And who am I that I can withstand God? Or why does the world think to make me deny what I have actually seen? For I had seen a vision. I knew it. I knew that God knew it, and I could not deny it. Neither dared I do it. I guess I say to those who are listening who believe in their heart that Joseph Smith was a prophet, lucky you to know what that means. Not because Joseph needed to be a prophet or wanted to be a prophet. I don't believe he did. But because there was a need for it. There was a need for it, and God calls prophets, and he restores his things through prophets.
Jay, I just remembered something. I was serving my mission when the Joseph album came out, right? We kind of talked about that in a different podcast, but so I listened to it a lot. When I got home, the family and we went up to Carthage. You remember that, Dad? I guess we went to Nauvoo, and we went to Carthage as well.
We did, yeah.
And we were rolling in there listening to the Joseph album, which, right, like that music in that place is a powerful combination. I've felt that now as a listener and as a performer. And as we were rolling up into that little jail, I was overwhelmed. I was overcome, and the thought that was overwhelming me was the simple idea that, what we're rolling up here is either what we're rolling up here to see and hear about is either real or it is not. In that moment, we were feeling how real it was, right? And that's why we were kind of so emotional. But it was so clear to me in that moment, just the binary nature of whether this being true, what that means for our life versus what it would mean if it wasn't true. And it was so powerfully spoken in that moment, thinking about Joseph and his sacrifice that day at that jail and why he did all this, right? And it's come back to these things where couldn't possibly be for a gain that he hoped to have and sustain, because it was doomed from the beginning. It was for our gain. It was because it was needed. Like you're saying, he didn't need it. We needed it. And we're still living beneficiaries of it.
To all those, to everyone who believes that and has a testimony of Joseph as a prophet, awesome. To those people who hate him, who think that he was a bad guy, and you know what? He's right. This either is of the devil or it is of God, and that's for each person to find out for themselves. But for anyone who hates his guts, there's no way that Joseph Smith or anybody else is smart enough to do the things that he did, to produce the things that he did, to bring those things into society and be part, no matter how it happened, no matter how you believe it happened. So it's either of the devil or it's of God, and that's up to each person to figure out. And so for anybody who just hates his guts, I'm sorry you feel that way. Have a good one. But for anybody who is on the fence for one of two reasons, either you're open to the idea or you don't know because you don't really want to know. Address the first. If you're thinking about it, just do what he did. James 1:5, ask God. James 1:5, God promises you that you'll get an answer if you have a sincere. Go find out. Ask. Trust God, for heaven's sake. You don't need somebody else to tell you what's going on here. Now, for the other people who are, on the fence because they don't really want to get into this, because if they know that Joseph Smith is a prophet, then they'll have to do something about it. For those of you who fall into that category, enough. I just say, knock it off. Enough. Find out for yourself and don't be afraid to go do it. This is, the time is at hand. If you don't believe that, if you've been paying attention to Russell and Nelson and you don't believe he's a prophet over the last couple of years, man, I don't know where you've been sleeping or something, because he's been pretty spot on. He's looking a lot like a prophet about right now. And I know we're all excited for General Conference. By the time you guys hear this, General Conference will probably be over, but and who knows what will happen. But man, it's just not a time to play around. There are blessings with the restoration of all this stuff. There are blessings with ordinances being alive and well, with the rights and the authority being alive and well back on the earth. And Jesus is coming. I don't know when, but he's coming. It's getting funkier by the minute. So, hey, that's my message to everyone falling in those categories, and I'll shut up right now.
Jay, that's an interesting point you bring up about being on the fence and maybe not wanting to find out. Is my wife is a convert, and she tells me the story about how when she was being taught, she was asked to read the Book of Mormon and to pray about it. And she read it. She knew it was good. And each time she was asked if she had prayed about it, she said, "No, I haven't done it yet." And of course, you got to pray about it. And she told me, later on that, hey, I set the book aside for a little bit because I didn't want to pray about it because I already knew the answer. And if you already know the answer, you may as well just pray about it because you already know, and get off the fence and get to doing.
And I get it.
Get off the fence and get to doing.
I imagine that wealthy young man that came up to Christ and said, what do I need to do to be saved in the kingdom, or wherever he put it? And Christ said, give up right now. Give up everything you have and follow me. He said the same thing to his other apostles when he called them. I mean, do you realize that guy could have been being called as an apostle? He could have been.
Yeah. Interesting.
And we know that he just couldn't do it. He wanted to. Maybe he didn't want to really go there. maybe he didn't want to pull that trigger because he just couldn't fathom. And I don't know. That's a good example for all of us. I get criticized sometimes from some people, I think, for being so hardcore when it comes to the way that I believe. But talked about this a million times. If you got certain things that you know are for real, why are you going to give those things up for things that you don't know? Give them some merit. Give the things that you know are real and that you feel within your heart, beating in your heart. Give them some merit and some trust in those things. You don't got to know everything. You're never going to know everything. I don't believe Joseph Smith knew everything. I think he knew amazing things, but I think he walked around going on the things that he did know. And just like God expects all of us. He didn't expect us to be perfect. He didn't expect us to know everything. Life is hard. It's messy. It's downright disgusting sometimes. And it's awful in some ways, in some moments. But it's beautiful when we lean on and we trust in the things that we know and the things that get our spiritual attention when we listen. That Hear Him video is amazing. It's exactly what this world. You guys seen that thing the church is about? Yeah, I mean, it's just exactly what we need, is just to stop, relax, stop being hyper, and just listen. And that's what I hope we can all do. That's what I hope I can do this weekend. We listen to this conference.
I'm excited, man. It's not only I'm always excited for conference, but I'm excited because the distractions of life have kind of drained away the last few weeks by force. And man, it kind of makes you realize how much a beacon of light it is to hear from a prophet of God, prophets of God. And so I'm just really stoked.
You were just saying that Joseph Smith probably, he didn't know everything either. But I think that one of the things we can learn from him is that from the very beginning, from the first thing he didn't know, he prayed and asked God. And then the next thing that he didn't know, he prayed and asked God. And the third thing and the fourth thing and the 100th thing that he didn't know, whether it was how to baptize or by what authority, he prayed and asked. And we've been taught recently, retaught, that we need to have those same experiences, that we need to be asking when we have those questions, because we're not going to get the answers from the media. We're not going to get the answers from society. We're not going to get the answers from Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. But we are going to get the answers from God. And this is our opportunity this weekend to hear him, to get those answers.
Yeah. Sonia last night had us watch Emily Bell Freeman's, her podcast, whatever, with her sidekick.
She is awesome.
She was saying that she brought up a point that I never really thought about before, why this was so significant. This experience of the first vision was so significant to Joseph. And number one, it established that you are known, because the first thing he says is he calls him by name. Number one, you're known by God. Great observation, Emily, if you're hearing this. And the second thing was you are heard. Because he said, I've heard you. I've heard you. That's why they're showing up, because they heard his prayer. And the third thing is we're answered. When our prayers are sincere, we're answered. And I'm forgetting a couple of the points that she brought up, but I love that part of her podcast last night, because I want to be known. I want to be heard. We all want to be heard, and we all want to be answered when we need it.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's all I have to say about
that.
We've kind of gone through in the last 10 podcasts, 11 podcasts, we've kind of gone through the songs of Joseph and Nashville Tribute to the Prophet. We'll probably, as we move on in podcasts, we'll probably move on and talk a little bit about other songs from, you guys let us know too. You can write us emails at nashvilletribute@gmail.com and let us know what you want us to talk about, what you'd love to hear about, maybe what album you want us to talk about, or what songs you want us to talk about, the story behind the songs. But this album, for me, has changed my life, and I'm just grateful to all you guys for being a part of that. Aaron, you probably mixed every kind of show from us, from little tiny stuff in people's living rooms to large rooms, large auditoriums and whatnot. And you've seen us sing these songs from Joseph and Nashville Tribute to the Prophet in every way, shape, or form. And what I love about this particular project and singing songs with you guys from this particular project, size of the audience or size of the venue, they never matter. Bigger is never better with these songs. And when you see people get it, like we're all kind of in sync. We're playing these songs, and there are moments, to be honest, when we don't feel anything, but there are moments, a lot of moments playing these songs when we have holy cow moments, because some some look at this whole thing. I used to use that. Remember, we used to talk about that old the view of of walking around the statue of the gospel, of the fulfilled gospel of Jesus Christ, and seeing it from an angle that we've never seen it before. And I've never had that happen more than by singing these songs with you guys out there on the road over the last 15, 16 years.
Sometimes I'm out there with the audience out there listening to these songs, like you said, Jason, and you guys have your moments on stage where, you get a little overclamped and, maybe Jason some more than others, but,
Really?
yeah. And I'm out there, amongst the audience, and I've had those moments where I'm listening to these songs and I get caught up, and you know what? Honestly, there might be an instrument that is too quiet sometimes because I'm caught up in the moment, feeling the Spirit and, just listening and having a moment of realization of maybe a message that I'm supposed to get. So to some of those audience members, sometimes, sorry, but I'm having my moment. Yeah, it's amazing to be able to be out there amongst the audience and listen to the songs as the audience does.
Finally, an honest sound man.
Oh yeah.
I'm really grateful for this album because it's one of the only albums maybe one of two albums in the 8 albums that we've made that I can truly listen to it as a fan and not as even somebody. It doesn't even feel like I was involved in the creation of it. It feels like I've never pushed play on the Joseph album, and I can't say this about any other piece of work I've ever had anything to do with. I've never pushed play on it when I was sick of it or when I didn't want to listen to it, ever. I mean, I on a road trip, in the morning, brushing my teeth, whatever, I can push play on that album and enjoy it every single time. And I can't say that about any other record I've ever worked on.
I will say this, too. I'm glad we've taken the time in this podcast to talk about these songs. It's reminded me some of the songs I'd forgotten about. And also, it just reminded me of the old early days when we used to play, when we would perform these firesides and performances, we would play this from top to bottom, except for maybe one song.
Because we couldn't play that one.
Right.
Try and see when you need him.
But the Spirit is super powerful, and it also has made me think about each one of these stories on Joseph and Nashville Tribute to the Prophet. Each one of these people, each one of these individuals, and each one of these stories and songs, what they're doing is pointing to one thing, and that is Jesus Christ. Every single one of them is pointing to the reason. We don't talk about Joseph or Emma or Porter or anything else for their sakes. We talk about these people and these experiences for the sake of Jesus Christ. Because every single one of these people, they pointed themselves, their teachings, and their lives to Him.
Amen to that.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I even love the guys that are on this call right now. Tim, Chad, wherever you are, and our mix engineer, Silvio Ricchetto down in Miami. We love all you guys, and I'm just so grateful for you guys. You guys have shown up doing these things for so long since, and I'll never know why. I'll never know why. Brad, you've been here. You and Dan have been here. or off your we've been doing this forever, and it's been a tough road out there in a whole lot of ways of doing this, but it's just been an absolute pleasure to stand up and testify of the restoration and testify of God calling prophets with you guys and to sing these things in the way that we do them. And I love you for that, all of you.
Thanks,
and likewise, dude.
Yeah, thanks for leading the charge.
I hope it'll continue to be an honor.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Know that we're going to figure out how to keep sharing the gospel is what we do, because we don't do anything else. We don't know how to do anything differently. So we'll figure it out. We just got to wait till the earth starts shaking.
Please subscribe to our podcast, Nashville Tribute Band Listening Room, and please share us with your friends. Tell them about our Instagram, our podcast, and of course, our music. And please visit us on our Facebook page, Nashville Tribute Band, and hit that like button. And please take the opportunity to visit our store at NashvilleTributeBand.com for music and merchandise. We'll see you next week. Be good and do good things. Nashville Tribute Band Listening Room. You've been listening to the Nashville Tribute Band podcast, The Listening Room, with Jason Deere. Make sure and subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. Nashville Tribute Band Listening And visit NashvilleTributeBand.com for music, information, and so much more. And make sure and enjoy this podcast each and every week.